we're officially starting our study session. Superintendent.
Thank you, President King. Appreciate that. Appreciate everyone being here. Appreciate our transportation department. We'll turn some time over to Eric Woodhouse, Executive Director of Operations, and he can introduce his team.
Okay, so I was really excited to be able to have my team present this presentation because we really had this ready for our last session, but recognized that we needed something more condensed. But I think what we're trying to do in the spirit of the reconfiguration is to really kind of dive in and just take a look at what this would look like for each one of our districts. We recognize that there's probably still a lot of details that we need to work through, but we don't really know what those details are unless we start exploring. And so this is our attempt to begin exploring exactly what those numbers look like. It's one thing to go from a wide lens and look at it from that perspective, but as you start getting granular, we're starting to find that there are a lot of different nuances to transportation that we really want to flesh out what those nuances are so that we can start to find problems for that. So keep that in mind. I did email you a copy of this presentation, so you've got that as viewers. So if there are any questions, you don't need to take pictures of the slides. You have access to it. And then as we start going through it, if there are questions, if we can answer those questions as we start to go through the presentation, please just feel free to ask those. If it feels better that we wait till the end, then we can ask them then as well. If it's a question that we're not quite sure what we have the answer to yet, that's great. Write it down and we will find the answer. So with that, just want to introduce the team, Joe, David, and Rex. I'm not sure, Joe, are you presenting with David? Or?
No, David and Rex will be presenting today and doing the bulk of the presenting. But just so you know, they will be going and giving you a little bit of history and context. So as we start talking about reconfiguration, that you have just kind of a little bit of background as what transportation looks like and exactly what we do. And I think that'll help you understand as we get into that, what things may look like part of the presentation. So,
Rex, you have the clicker first.
No, actually, Dave will have the clicker first.
Turn the clicker over to you.
Hi, welcome. Thanks for having us back. My name's David. I'm in the East Transportation Hub, and then I'm Rex's junior companion. And we also have a team of 300 bus drivers, 80 bus attendants who work before the sun rises. They go home after the sun sets. They're led by about 25 instructors and trainers. We're kept on the road by 16 mechanics. And not only are they very safe, we just had a highway patrol inspection. We have about 360 buses, and they found only 3 that were put out of service. Not only are they very safe, they're also very efficient. The national average per mile costs $1.31 to run, and our number comes in a little bit lower than that at $1.26. And for a little bit of fun information, the state reimburses us back $1.07 per eligible mile. To review our department goals, we're looking to recruit and retain drivers, reduce employee absenteeism, reduce accidents, double runs, and not eligible routes. So when we're not chasing down accidents or trying to fix routes, this is what we think about. We also owe you guys a great deal of gratitude for the help you've helped us or sent us with our retention efforts. That's the attendance incentives. We provide drivers, new paid training for bus drivers, and then those referral bonuses. And this is a graph of our average drivers over the years. You can see that we peaked in about 2019, 2020, and then in 22-23 is where we hit our lowest point in average drivers. That's also the year we started the driver incentive, and you can see we're starting to climb back out. Not quite where we want to be, but we see a positive trend over the last 3 years.
So that's a pretty good quick overview of our department, our team. Now we're going to talk about some numbers, some implications for the reconfiguration, talk about legislative language, definitions, state report. All the information we're speaking about comes from the 23-24 school year. So the state says that we are only able to collect reimbursement from eligible routes, but they don't do a very good job explaining what route means. So we kind of have a little bit of liberty in that, and this is how we define it. So we have riders that show up at stops. Bus drivers pick them up at stops. Those stops then equate to runs, and then a collection of runs means a route, okay? So just to make it a little bit more easy to understand, you have a high school, starts early in the morning. The high school will have a number of stops where kids collect and we pick them up from. The high school, then they're dropped off at the high schools, and then they go and pick up their junior high kids at a variety of stops. And then the same thing for elementary schools. Then in the afternoon, that makes up their morning route. In the afternoon, turn around and do the same thing. Pick up the high schoolers, take them home, pick up the junior highs, take them home, pick up the elementary kids, take them home, and that makes up their afternoon route. Okay? So let's talk about eligible stops then. What is an eligible stop? So any student that lives 1.5 miles or more from an elementary school is eligible, and any high school or junior high kid who lives 2 or more miles from the school, their secondary school, they are also eligible for transportation. Special Ed 504, it's a little bit different. They qualify per IEPs or a committee, and that's how they're deemed as eligible riders. So continue on what's an eligible run. Regular ed speaking, we have to have at least 10 eligible regular riding students for it to be an eligible run. As special ed goes, there has to be at least 5 regular riding students to make it eligible as well. So we have stop 1, stop 2, stop 3, maybe 11 riders or more. It says up there 3 riders, 5 riders, 3 riders. Well, we have some stops that are up around 60 students per stop. It's kind of crazy to watch those cats be herded. So, there are some limited parameters from the state for eligible routes, meaning what's not eligible. What's a non-eligible bus stop? So if we deem that a stop or an area is hazardous, the state, not to be mean, but they don't care. It's not funded, right? Meaning no safe walking path or lack of sidewalks, etc. Courtesy bus stops, they do allow us to put those on qualifying routes, as long as it's en route to the school and there's not deviation to get to that stop. All right, so
that one does qualify or does not?
the route does
Courtesy,
qualify.
okay.
The stop, yes, because the route qualifies as long as it's just one single that doesn't deviate from that.
But you're paid by route, not by rider, so a courtesy
Correct.
stop is not gonna increase the funding, that's
Does
why they're
not.
neutral on it.
No,
Oh,
doesn't
it's
help,
neutral,
doesn't hurt.
okay.
Yep. Okay, so proposed metrics, counting ridership at eligible stops is more reliable than counting runs or routes. So that's what this whole presentation is going to be done on ridership rather than routes and runs.
Let's take a look at numbers. Our district has 218 bus routes, made up of 1,154 runs, made up of over 6,000 bus stops, and we transport nearly 18,000 students every single day. And as a fun note, last year we did 8,000 activities, that's field trips, sporting events, and our buses traveled over 3 million miles. So these are some big numbers. We pull these numbers from our state report. In the schools, they do an October 1 count. We do a similar thing where we ask bus drivers to count heads at stops, and then we submit that to the state, and then they fund us based off of those numbers per percentage divided by the pot. We don't know what the percentage will be until they tell us. We estimate that to be about 80% is what we expect back. And then these numbers that we're about to go over don't include summer school. We do about 20 in lieu of, which means we pay their transportation because we can't provide it, Suncrest, also van drivers, and then also activities. So, out of the 86,000 students in our district, 24,000 are eligible for busing, leaving 61,000 who are not eligible for busing. If you cross-section that 24,000, we transport almost 15,000 eligible students. And on the other side, we estimate about 3,000 not eligible students who ride our buses. And the way we found that is, we counted the number of students at not eligible stops in that October count. That brings our total to nearly 18,000 students. Now if you divide that by area, this is what the numbers look like. So if we look at reconfigured districts, it would break down. West would have 6,000 riders, Central 8, and South almost 4. If we go one step lower, eligible breaks like this for each area. And you may look at the South and say they have a higher percentage of ineligible riders, and that's true. But also what is true is that every district will need to take on or look at what they're going to do with ineligible riders. This is a problem for all of us. So if we look at percentage, counting all riders, eligible and not eligible, West makes up 35%, Central 45, and 20 for South. However, if we look at only eligible, that adjusts slightly. West increases to 38%, Central stays the same, and South decreases 3%. And these are the numbers we're going to use for the rest of this presentation for allocation of resources and staff. And actually, we brought a little handout. So you have all these numbers at your fingertips. You don't have to remember anything if you don't mind passing. Excellent. So division of assets, we have 360 buses currently, 30 of which are in the boneyard, which means they're sitting for either surplus or repair. If we take that 364 divided by the percentage of eligible riders, this is how those would break out and be divided. If we look at personnel, we have 300 drivers. Assuming we can perfectly place them in 3 new districts, by percentage, this is how those would break out. We support 2 offices with 21 FTE. By percentage, that's how those would break out. And then we have a mechanic shop service center and some floating mechanics out west. This is how those would break out. So the age-old question is, can new districts conduct business as usual with the allocated resources? We can't answer that directly, but here are some numbers to help you. If you look at West, we estimate they'll be given 77 routes in order, or they'll need 77 routes in order to conduct business as usual. This is not including activities. This is just to school and from school. They'll get 114 drivers if we're able to divide drivers perfectly, and 138 buses. Central looks like this. South is a little more tight. It looks like this. Now, these bus allocations include boneyard buses. They do not include buses we're about to ask for next year. So if South has 61 buses given to them, some of those buses will be boneyard buses and will need significant repair before they're on the road. And you want to assume about 10% of your fleet is in repair or being serviced at any given time. So if we're looking at just South, those numbers are a little bit tight. And then one of our big concerns is, one of the ways we've been able to inflate the West is we allow drivers to park east and drive west, meaning someone lives in Pleasant Grove, they don't want to commute out to Westlake, so we allow them to come to the east compound, pick up a bus, and then drive a west route. So it's less efficient for us, but we've been able to, and we can estimate about 50 drivers, we've been able to inflate the West about 50 drivers because they're able to commute on their bus and get paid for that. So that's one of our big worries going forward in splitting, looking at the West, is do we have enough drivers to allocate for those new districts?
All right, so we'll talk now a little bit about our budget and how we collect revenue and some expenditures as well. So we're set up as a service to schools. We operate in a deficit to maximize the benefit to schools and patrons. So through the 2023-24 school year, we generated a revenue of $15 million and about $15.4 million. We added to that school fees like for field trips, athletics, things like that, at $1.4 million. And then on top of that, we collect testing fees from our new drivers. When they go through the new driver class, we test them internally, and we charge them $100 for the test, and equates to about $8,000 for a total of about $16.8 million. Then, with that, then we have our expenses of about $20.7 million, which gives us a deficit of just under $4 million. That's because the district supplements a lot of our ineligible routes, as well as activity trips and field trips. Then we put into that also the capital, which is buses, the camera systems, the radios, the tablets that come with those new buses, for a total of about $6.2 million deficit. So other large expense, well, all the large expenses, in addition, we have salaries and benefits we pay our employees. Fuel costs about $1.6 million a year, and bus repair and maintenance about $1.4 million a year, and software maintenance and agreements at $300,000 a year. Of the salaries and benefits, 67% of that is dedicated to our drivers, 29% contracted, 37% hourly. Support staff, mechanics, office, custodial at 31%, and administration just 2%. So upcoming capital needs that we are just in the process of submitting. Our radio repeaters are on the fritz. I mean, that's how we communicate with our drivers with us, and drivers with each other. They are on the way out. So to replace those is about $40,000. And once those are replaced with a new company that's cheaper and better, it would benefit both sides of the district. They'll have a repeater west, they'll have a repeater east. So when it comes to dividing the district, there's that benefit already in place. We have 29 buses, like David said, they're in the boneyard. That's really the cemetery. It's where we put the buses that are very, very old, expensive to repair and put on the road. And it's going to cost somewhere between $100 for a battery and $80,000 for a new engine. Okay, but we would like to see around 50 new buses for a cost of about $10 million for next year. And again, those are assets that can be easily divided between the districts, but it's something that we need to look at immediately if possible. West Service Center, thorn in the side. I know we've been talking about this for years and years, and it's just kind of not happened for a variety of reasons. But still, it's something that's very, very necessary for that west side of the current district, as well as what will be the west district when the split actually happens.
You guys saw these slides last week. We covered 3 strategies for reconfiguration. The first idea was, let's keep everyone together. We'll call that unified transportation. Another idea is a tiered transition, where we slowly move into it. And then the third option was a clean split, everyone on their own. The unified transportation is where everyone works together and we have some kind of MOU between the future districts. However, there are a lot of questions that come with that. Who buys buses? Who maintains? Who hires? Who fires? How do we navigate that? The other idea was a clean split, everyone on their own immediately. However, when you look west, they need a service center. And when you look south, they need everything as far as facilities. So a tiered transition, what if west splits off immediately and then central and south stay together until south is able to split off on their own? What could that look like? Well, west has these 3, they lack a service center. Perhaps west could contract with or have an MOU with central to continue servicing buses. Perhaps they could lease a space and set up a temporary service center, or perhaps we pull the trigger on a west service center and then that takes care of the issue for the west side. Looking central and south, the combined 2 districts would have everything. Perhaps central could act as a central managing partner. Perhaps central could act as a managing partner. Come up with some kind of agreement for shared costs. They would need to coordinate calendars to a certain degree. Where they're sharing transportation, they would need to coordinate calendars, bell schedules, etc. We took a field trip. You have some of these details from last week. We found that Cache had 80% and Logan 20% of an agreement that they currently operate on. Cache is the managing partner. They hire and train. They coordinate all the routes. They maintain the office. And then Logan buys the buses and then gives them to Cache to manage. And then at the end of the year, they take all their expenses for that year. Logan cuts a check for 18% of those costs and sends it to Cache, and that's their agreement. They currently don't have any crossover, meaning Logan buses service Logan routes. If we were to look at that, and if we did have crossover, this is just a double down on the importance for similar calendars. So what could this look like for us? This is a very rough estimation. These numbers, I'm looking at Jason a little bit nervous. These are just current numbers divided by percentage. So there's a lot that could go into this that could change every single number. But if we take the current split of in, out, and deficit, and we divide it by percentage of eligible riders, the different areas would have this to look at. And perhaps what you could say is, well, if West goes off on their own, and that's a separate issue right now, if you looked at Central and South, maybe what happens is at the end of the year, South cuts a check for the deficit, buys their own buses, and transportation costs them $1 million a year. That's just kind of how you would interpret these numbers.
David, Mark, have a question?
Yes, please.
So these split numbers, are they based on the number of students in each district or the number of eligible riders?
They're based on the eligible ridership. So this is 17%, this is 45%, and this is 38%. Based on eligible ridership. And the reason we did eligible ridership is the legislation language says state-supported route. And we interpret that as, what does the state pay us for? And that's this. Was there a follow-up? Yes, please.
I had a question, David. On your upcoming needs slide, you
Yes.
had listed the 29 buses needing repair, and then you had 50 new buses. Is it either that or, is it an either or, and are you saying that's gonna be about over 5 million in costs with the 50 new buses?
So with the boneyard, they are there for a reason. They're very expensive to repair and maintain.
So they're not really coming out.
They're not, however, they could be at a cost that doesn't make a lot of sense. So
I think Julie could probably use them for her books.
I could refurbish those wrecks.
Do you have anything that compares this with the ineligible ones we're currently doing? Any changes?
help me understand more what you mean.
So like this is just eligible riders, so how many other riders do we, like that we're transporting now?
Oh,
So what would that cost be? I just need like another column next to it.
The
Oh, sorry,
transportation.
transportation budget, slide, 51.
Here, I have it right here. Which one?
Oh,
It's 51.
So you're saying like based on current information and not just eligible riders?
Cause I think that people in general don't know how many ineligible riders we have. So I would just love to be able to see, this is what it would be ineligible, but then a column of this is what you're currently transporting that would not fall under this.
Yeah, we could take a look at that.
It
Other
gets tricky
follow-up
because
questions
some
on-
of them are just being picked up as part of an eligible
Right.
route.
I understand.
So yeah, so it gets a little tricky with that.
Sometimes it's difficult to know it in a qualifying stop how many ineligible students are being dropped off, walking to, or
Yeah.
it's hard. But
I know. You know I have very packed buses.
yes, you do.
Other questions before we go on?
Sarah, did your question get answered though, as far as is it a 50 million or is it the whatever it was to do the 29 buses?
Yeah, I mean.
If you get the 50 million, will you need to do the 29 buses?
Wait, is it, wait a second, is it 10 million for 50 buses? Because you just said 50 million and my head
Oh, sorry,
exploded.
50 buses.
We'll take 50 million, 50
Okay,
buses.
no, okay,
Sorry,
10
50
million
buses.
for
10
50
million,
buses,
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
50 buses.
Okay.
10 million. Yeah.
Yeah, so yes.
Please
that's
don't
the-
transpose those numbers, those are really nice buses.
If you buy today.
I mean, with the understanding that really appreciate new buses because of a variety of reasons. It brings the maintenance and operations costs down, the repair costs, and the age of the fleet remains lower, and it doesn't make a lot of sense to repair those buses. They are there for a reason. They've seen their life. It's time to see them go bye-bye.
So if that gets through the budget process, then you just dispose excess of the.
We'd surplus.
Surplus them.
And that's where I come in. I'm just
Oh,
kidding.
I don't-
So, would that be an additional request the following year? Like, I'm just wondering if you're saying we're replacing 50 buses potentially this year, or we're going to talk about another 50 the following year, or what's the right number as far as replacement to get all the districts in a solid place?
Good question. It probably would not rise to the level of 50 again next year. Another thing we're looking at that complicates it a little bit, we used to need drivers to put in our buses. We're getting close to the point where we really need buses to put these new drivers in, because we've seen the upswing that we're hiring, which is wonderful, we love it, but I'd hate to get to the point and say, well, we can't hire you, I don't have anything for you to drive. So, no, I think there will still be a request for buses next year, probably not to the level of 50.
Like, give me a ballpark, Rex. Like
49.
30. Okay. I'm just wondering, as you're talking about, 10% in repair at any time, and how many we have in the boneyard, is it 50 this year, and then maybe you get 35, and then you ask for 50 again next year, and maybe you get 35, and 70 would be close enough? I'm just wondering, because I know how the budget process works. You're not going to get what you asked for. Sorry to break it to you.
No, yeah, that's probably very accurate.
Okay.
Yes.
And I think we could, sorry, Mark, we could go back to that slide and say, okay, this is, if we divided them 3 ways, this is where we're at, this is where we would be tight, because you're saying probably you need additional 10 to 15% that are not being, just for that flexibility. So this would cover all of your routes, and then here's your flex amount.
Remember, each district will need more buses for the
Yeah.
simple fact we cross over. And that's not just special ed, Polaris, and Summit. Some of our routes, especially west to central, cross over between schools, junior high, high school, elementary. And so that's really a deflated number. We will need more than that shows.
So in the budget process, it would be nice to know, like, hey, in 3 years, we'd like to be at this number, because then I think that would help us better plan how many we really can do this year and then maybe next year.
So I talked to some other districts that, they maintain their buses at some commercial, repair facility. How does that compare? I think one of the things they mentioned is it's kind of hard because we would give it a higher priority, right, of getting that bus fixed on the road. Like someplace else, they'd have to get it in line with other work they have to do. Have you thought about that, or the cost comparison, or?
We
as an
do,
option?
yeah, we do think about that a lot, and in conversations with our fleet manager, to outsource, not only do you not have priority, it's much more expensive, much more costly. If we can have mechanics in-house do it, it's, number one, we know the quality work they do, and number two, it's a higher priority, and 3, it costs significantly less. I don't have the numbers to show it, but.
I think right now you only have 2 major repair hubs in the state, right? You've got Rush and you've got Bryson that do major repairs on buses, and that's only 2 companies for the entire state where these buses are primarily going, and so you're another bus in that queue of all these other districts. Larger districts like ours has a fleet of mechanics, Davis, Jordan, all the big districts do. The smaller districts are the ones that tend to send or outsource all of their buses to a shop like that to get them repaired, because it's just not cost effective for them to keep a mechanic, or several mechanics full time. It would make more sense to do that. So I think the size of the 3 districts, especially if you keep South and Central together, you'd still want shops, and you'd still want to do as much repair in-house as you can.
And maybe another plug for new buses, they come with warranties, and that keeps that maintenance and repair costs down. And at least one of the shops comes to us for a lot of the warranty work. We don't have to even take the bus to them, they come to us, which is very, very nice.
And beyond just repair, we're not thinking only accidents. There's continuing maintenance, preventative work. Half of our bays right now are preventative work. We're thinking oil changes, tires, fluids, that kind of thing. So it's more than just we had an accident, we have to deal with it, or a road call, we have to deal with it. Lots of preventative maintenance goes on in Brush Air as well.
Did you say 10% is what we need, in reserve?
Yeah. You need about 10% in reserve for service, repair, and buses being out for those reasons.
I think one of the things with our district that we've seen is the number of buses is certainly dependent again upon the number of drivers. And we have 218 routes right now, but when we had those high driver numbers, at one time we had like 268 routes. So we had a lot more routes because we had a lot more drivers. And then we didn't have to do things like double runs. We didn't have to, you know, have some of our buses be as crowded as they currently are. That larger driver number gave us that opportunity to do more things in transportation. So we've dropped as low as like right at 200. So our district hasn't shrunk in size, but we've had to become more efficient because we had, you know, a huge drop in drivers. So instead of having 268 routes, a few years ago we were down to like 204 routes, 205 routes. And we gradually began to grow that back out again as we've hired and retained more bus drivers.
Other questions for this slide?
I'm gonna ask one
Yes,
more
please.
question. So, I suppose it's possible to just contract the whole transportation thing, right? And get a vendor that will just buy the buses, maintain them.
Which
How
first
does that
student
compare in
city?
cost?
yeah.
We don't have numbers, but we have a story.
Okay.
That's the way.
I wanted the story.
And we can find numbers if you want. We've used it here and there in the past. It's been a few years, it's just unaffordable. But if you look at the Logan Cash agreement, that's how Logan started. They transported through a third party, and they were so displeased that they partnered up with Cash, and that's how that agreement started. But when they went with Cash, it was cheaper, it was safer, and they followed the rules.
There is
Trust maintenance.
Not that, I think a third party, I mean, there is, again, Ogden uses a third party vendor. I think they feel very good about what's happening with that. So it's not, you know, it's not the worst option out there. That is an option for one of the districts to look and do that. So, yeah, that
Because
would
if you
be a
looked at the
possibility.
South District, they've got to build all those facilities, and I mean, it's quite a bit of money too, so the third party might not be that much more.
And maybe even a gap solution for a couple of years until they get on their feet.
So, but I don't know, in my head, wouldn't a third party be way more expensive than like the tiered option?
We believe so.
Anyway, that's what I'm asking.
Oh.
Yeah, we can definitely get with Jared and see what the costs are in Ogden.
That would be really helpful.
Yes, please.
When you talk about a service center, well, you have two areas that don't have service centers. And I know there's talk about retrofitting, you know, back to what it was on the south, but that would handicap our facilities people. They'd have to give up something. So with a smaller area, can you like estimate how many bays is planned for the west? And would the south need the same number of bays, or?
Well, with the
way
$50
less?
million that Eric's giving us, we're gonna be okay. We're gonna be just fine.
Okay, so that's it.
No, so this is what was planned for the West Service Center. This is an actual drawing that Frank sent over.
So what would you
So-
So was
estimate?
that a full service? Cause how it was?
Yeah, yeah, it was full service with a bus wash. I think I remember drivers that could also be serviced there.
Yeah, I think in the original plans, we had a 5 bays and then a wash, and then I think 2 of those were gonna be in-ground and the other 3 are portable lifts, which means you could do buses in there or other vehicles.
So estimate?
Well,
would-
Frank's not here to defend himself, but let's just tell him we need 15 million.
For the yeah.
How much do we have left to build this versus what we saved? What do we need to make this?
That's,
I don't know.
Is that a Jason question?
Well, we were talking about that the other day. There's $6 million right now, but that $6 million also may need to be used for the high school, so it may be the 0, but it'd probably take another $4 million or so.
Frank was gonna bring back a number, I believe, next time.
He said, I mean, I think a few years ago, we were looking right at about 10 million in that neighborhood, so probably add maybe 12 to 13 million. And
Okay.
again, it depends on, you know, what type, like if you do in-ground lifts, if you do all portable lifts, what other type of equipment you're gonna put into that service center.
Are you gonna do a bus wash, or are you gonna hold off on the bus wash for a while? That seems what the plan happened, or what happened to the plan was, yes, there's a bus wash area, but we're not going to put the equipment into it and save that
Oh, I
cost
see.
for a number of years.
I have a Jason question, but, so Jason, when we went through the budget process, we put those funds aside for the West Transportation. So they can't be used for something else, right?
Yeah, the board can always decide to change that. It's not set. I mean, that's where it's assigned right now, but, so there was 2 million last year, 2 million this year, and then 2 million a few years ago.
Other questions for us?
Okay, you can go ahead.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity.
We'll do a little pass off to Joe.
Yeah.
Joe's gonna bring it home for us.
Just one of the other questions that was asked was just a little bit of discussion about ineligibles, and to come back to that subject a little bit. So again, what do what laws guide our decision? Again, eligibility is based on your proximity to the school and nothing else, right? Once you get beyond that 1.5, or you get beyond that 2, or you live underneath that mileage, then it is up to you to provide your own transportation. So every time we add a stop or do anything like that, that becomes an ineligible stop that is funded at some rate by the district. Our routers do an excellent job of making sure that we do not have totally unfunded routes, right? But we have unfunded stops on those routes. I think we only had maybe 2 last year that were completely unfunded routes, but there are stops along that are not funded, okay? So again, as we look at what we do by the numbers right here, 70 completely ineligible runs, but again, those runs are making up part of a route. So we are getting some funding back on these routes, but there are chunks of those routes that are not receiving any funding, okay? So again, this is from a couple of years ago, but we're close. About 3,100 ineligible riders, about 70% of what we do is transporting ineligible riders, okay? And then just to give you an idea of where those ineligible riders are located, we didn't bring up the information for the elementary, but at the secondary level, this is kind of where those ineligible riders are distributed throughout the district, okay? And again, they are spread kind of throughout east, west, central. We have ineligible riders throughout. Now, one of the things that we had talked about at the end of last year was moving forward and eliminating all secondary ineligible routes for this coming school year, which is something that we can still move towards, but as we move into this kind of uncharted territory with this reconfiguration, I know that there had been some discussion as we try to move towards this, that cities and city officials might have some impact or say as to the district having that ability to stop running routes or removing ineligible routes. And I don't know where that currently stands or what will happen in this upcoming legislative session that might, hinder us or present some roadblocks from us being able to move forward and eliminate these ineligible routes, okay? And a lot of these ineligible routes have been there for years, but again, they're all over the place depending upon a variety of different conditions that exist that may pose a safety issue. And that's not to say that any parent couldn't argue that how their student gets to school if they're walking might pose a safety issue. So safety and safe walking routes, it's very subjective, right? It's in the eye of the beholder what is safe and what is not safe. But just to keep going through here a little bit, there is a lot. Every school is required to put together at least elementary and junior high to provide their safe walking routes on their website. Those are gone through each year by school and reviewed and posted for the public to see what the recommended safe walking route is. And last year, although it's always hard when you remove busing, this is a process that we've gone through year in and year out, where we've communicated with people and tried to let them know, for again a variety of different reasons, that their route will no longer be run, and that we're going to eliminate that particular route or that particular stop that services their students currently. Okay, it is nice when cities, step in and provide crossing guards and things like that, but that's not always the case. So again, we're looking at a chunk of students that as we begin to remove ineligible routes, if that's what inevitably happens, families will be impacted when we do that. Okay, any questions with that?
Do you have longitudinal data for this, on this? It just really is one occasionally?
Meaning like looking back in the past at what's happened? It's gonna be pretty consistent, I think. You know, obviously when you take a new school like Viewpoint, right? We don't really know, and some of the boundary changes have impacted that over the last couple of years. So to say, go back and say, no, we probably can't provide a ton. We have base numbers, right? So we can say, okay, this year we had this many ineligibles, the year before, but it seems to remain fairly
Or
steady.
Sundance, sorry.
I'm sorry?
I just meant about Sundance.
Oh, about Sundance?
Yeah.
Oh,
Is it really just like one?
Sundance is so interesting, right?
Like, were we really sending a bus to bring one kid to school?
I mean,
One to this school, one to that school.
it got to that point, right? Historically, that wasn't what was happening, that they had more kids there, but as kids age out, as kids get to the age where they can drive,
Right.
as families move, and so as we continue to review that data, we're like, wow, we see it trending downward till you get to the point like, this makes no sense at all, right? We need to eliminate this. Okay, any other questions for any one of us when it comes to transportation and reconfiguration?
So, like in the Sundance routes,
Yeah.
is there some way we can like give them a cash, you know, to drive their own kids or something like that? Or what's the law say?
The law, we can provide in lieu of, which is a reimbursement rate where they check the, you know, they give them a certain amount for mileage and they look at days attended, and that's what we offer usually when we are no longer going to provide service because it's ineligible. So I think on the slide earlier, we had like 20 families receiving in lieu of because the bus can't get to them, so that is an option.
Oh, are they all in Traverse? Are they all mine?
No, we have some out west that we just can't get to because of dirt roads or other reasons.
Sometimes it's up in the, you
It's
know,
like-
the Suncrest area where the hills and things like that, they don't allow because of the grade
Right.
for the buses to get into. We do have a few vans that we utilize to get kids from like a house to a bus or a school where we pick them up, or we just offer in lieu of. And some families are like, I'm gonna drive my student anyway, so I'll utilize that service.
When you say a few vans, how many? Three? Okay.
One
Yeah.
east, two west.
Yeah. And again, they're primarily used to pick up special education students where we just can't get a bus into their area or neighborhood. And so they pick the student up and again, either take them to school or take them to an area where they can meet the bus.
Are they specially equipped for SPED students?
Wheelchairs.
Okay.
Yes, please.
I know that you talked about, you know, getting drivers, and it is looking a teeny bit better than it did back in
Yeah.
2021, 2022. How many of our bus drivers, or do we have any teachers, like from FFA? I mean, we've had one particular that has his license. How many do you have throughout the district that drive their own students? Or do you, not, maybe one?
No, we don't.
At all?
So when you look at teachers and things like that, then you start getting into hours of service. And the federal government, you know, says that you can have so many hours that you can drive within a week. And any on-duty job is, those hours of service are ticking. So if I teach all day and then start driving a bus, all that time teaching is part of those
part of
hours
that?
of service, yeah.
Mm.
And really, when you think about it, I this is just my opinion, but best practice, right? I don't want that person who's been teaching all day to then take a load of students and drive for like the next 2 hours. I mean, that's a long day for anyone. And so that has hindered having like a teacher or somebody else
We've just had
drive a
FFA
bus.
teachers that wouldn't be teaching at all that day. They would just go with their students up to Logan at their competition, and they had talked about that, and it was
Yeah.
hard getting. But it sounds like we've offered before.
And again, I would push back because again, it's like, hey, I'm gonna get on a bus. I haven't driven one for years, but this day I'm gonna get on there and drive, and practice makes perfect. And I personally feel much better.
I mean, I got my CDL when I was appointed to this position, and I've only driven one bus load of students. There's no way I would go out and sub on a route right now, because I just don't have that
Rex, I've seen you
continuous.
drive just your own car.
I know, that's never, this is confessional time.
You said that's a federal requirement now?
Hours of service, yes. Yep.
Okay.
So you have so many hours that you can drive within a week, and how many hours you can drive within a day. And And so those will limit teachers and others from doing that have another job. With the exception of farmers, right? That somehow if you're a farmer, you can do whatever you want. You drive a bus.
Another minor issue is every month we have random drug testing, and they can get called out at any time for that testing. They have to leave their class, their school, get themselves down. They have 3 hours to do it. And I know of one teacher in the district that was called out 3 consecutive months. And finally, I think they just said, I'm done. You know, so there are other aspects as well.
If you fail a drug test, it's a lifetime ban, so it's a big deal on that.
Whoa.
Yeah. Some other things to consider too, we don't really talk about McKinney-Vento students, but that is another population of students that are provided transportation at various times. And so that number fluctuates based on the number of students who qualify for McKinney-Vento. So that impacts what we do. We also have 2 14-passenger, we'll call them activity buses, which schools and different programs will utilize. And so that is maybe an option as new districts come on board to look at doing something like that. With these smaller activity buses, you don't need a CDL, you don't need a chauffeur's license, you don't need those things, and you can transport smaller groups of students, and they come at a significant cost reduction to what it would be to buy a bus.
Joe, can you talk for a minute? Because when we talk about activity and activity runs, it has been the tradition of Alpine to really subsidize some of those activities, because we want our schools to be able to go on these field trips, but it does come at a cost at the transportation level. Can you talk about that for a little bit, about those activity runs?
Yeah, so when you look at the number, that deficit number that we run in, a lot of that, the majority of that is because we are still charging the same amount for an activity that we did when I came into transportation, like in 2014, right? $4 a mile, okay? Driver wages have gone up. I think when I came into transportation, we were paying like $13.85, and what are we now? $23.94. Yeah. So wages go up. The price of gas has gone up. The price of repair and maintenance to our buses has gone up, but we still continue to charge that $4 a mile for our activities. Now that keeps the cost down, certainly for our schools, our parents, our athletes, and things like that, but it does come at a cost to the district overall, right? So that is what we do in Alpine with activity charges is, unique, right? Most districts charge a per mile cost, they charge an hourly driver cost,
Setup fee.
they charge a setup fee, they charge a cleaning fee,
It's like
right?
Airbnb for buses.
Yeah, yeah. So we're very generous to our schools and to our students by what we do with activities and how little we really charge to allow those students to participate in those events and have transportation, I guess, to participate in those
Did I
events.
understand that was $4 compared to $23.94? Is that the,
No, the
$4
$23.94 is the beginning hourly wage for a bus driver.
Oh,
when
that's
they
the
first-
driver.
Yes, when
Okay.
they first started out. 4 hours or $4 per mile is what we charge for activities.
Our best guess is that it costs us $12 and we charge $4.
So it's 12 to 4, okay.
We estimate that we charge 1/3 of what it costs.
Okay.
So what do you think would happen if we charged full price?
Well, I don't think schools would be quite as happy. Maybe business goes down a little bit because it's more expensive. They'd have to pull money from somewhere else. And our mindset is really that of service. We're not looking to make money. We're looking to serve schools. We're just providing that information to you to help us along.
So have you ever come to us before and said, hey, by the way, you have, okay.
Yeah, it has happened in the past, yes. But again, a district wants to help students have those experiences.
Absolutely.
And we all know that if we have that cost, who's gonna pay the difference? The families will. It'll be passed on to the parents and families.
Or if we did it that way and charged more, then the district could provide more. It'd be the same district support, whether we give it to schools and they give it to transportation, or if it's just made up in the end.
Yeah, it's the same big pot of money.
As a whole, we feel very supported. When a bus needs to be repaired, we've never been told no. When we need to pay someone or fill up a bus, we've never been told no. So although we work in a deficit, we feel like we're providing a good service and we're fully supported by you.
Can we get the elementary version of Ineligible Riders?
Sure.
Love to see that. And thank you for the color coding, the different areas, it's helpful.
Any other questions before we sign off?
I guess my question is if, when we start talking about if it's gonna be unified or transition or clean, when do we kinda need to make that decision so that you all can plan on your end? You're gonna get back to me.
Eric?
You know, I think one thing that would be helpful for our department, especially when you start looking at doing the routing for specific districts, that the sooner we can understand what that starts to look like, the more we can start looking naturally at maybe uncoupling some of those routes that are cross district and seeing how many buses it will take. And I think we can get some better numbers of what those actual bus numbers would look like, drivers, routes, stops, if we can start looking at uncoupling that, and we can do that through naturally, you know, at the beginning of or before the beginning of the year, maybe starting to look at 3 ways that we can do that. 1, naturally for how we've done business as usual in Alpine, but maybe number 2, looking at, okay, what would that look like if we separated west, or if we coupled south and central, just starting to reimagine what those routes would look like, and then we can bring that to the board and say, this is what it could start to look like moving forward, and that gives us at least 2 years to start working towards that.
That's what
Which
I'm
the sooner we
asking,
do
so if you
that,
can
the
start
better.
it for the next year,
Yeah.
refine it for the next year,
Yep.
so that when it transitions.
That's what I think we would prefer.
Okay.
I think one of the hardest things with doing anything like that is when it comes to SPED and what SPED's gonna look like, because then you're forecasting into the future, what schools are gonna host what programs, where are those students gonna come from to support those programs, and that becomes very, very tricky. I mean, SPED is a huge project each year, because even in our district currently, right, each year we're looking, where do we have the space to put this program, and then, you know, what does busing look like to support that program, and it's kind of this jigsaw puzzle that is moving around constantly, and to kind of forecast that out years ahead of time without knowing what that population looks like and where those programs will be located in these different districts makes it very tricky. Regular ed, a little bit easier to give you some better information on SPED. I would say very, very difficult to provide that.
This one's a little more challenging than some of the other areas because it's still gonna be a future district determination.
Right.
So how much do you invest in that at this point to set that up for possibilities, what the recommendation looks like, and it probably needs to be more than a recommendation, because, or you just hold and say, we're gonna continue to maintain what we currently have, and then new districts will decide. I think one area that could help mitigate some of that is if there's a board will to remove all ineligible prior to the new districts, and then districts build that back in if they want to. That would reduce some of our stress on our drivers'
Right.
routes and the need for buses.
That would be big.
But again, that's gonna come with some angst, because people are used to having transportation.
But would it have less, I'm gonna choose my words carefully, would it have less of a, like, maybe negative cliff if we were moving towards, like, the tiered, to go then from tiered to split, if new boards chose to do that, then go from us staying all together and then 3 clean breaks?
Can I ask a follow-up to that?
Yes, please.
Are you proposing we do a tiered split starting next year or before the reconfiguration?
Yeah, so I'm
in
saying-
anticipation of the reconfiguration?
Yeah, so I'm saying go with what Eric's saying, right? We start it next year, fix it the next year, and so then if those new boards in 2.5 years say, no, we want a clean break, we go there, but if they say, no, we wanna stay with this tiered,
So you're saying uncouple routes prior to, like, you're basically routing 3 districts in our current configuration, so.
well, I guess I'm saying a 2-way.
Oh, so like a.
Obviously, I can't speak for other people, but it would be my preference that we would continue, like, to help. I'm not, it's not my intention to say, hey, South, figure it out, right? But if we, so I guess what I'm saying is, can West be on one, and then Central
on
and
one.
South, with the intention that once they figure out what they're doing.
Yeah, one specific example of that we're looking at, if you look at Lehigh only, they have about 45 routes or 45 drivers. They are currently serviced by the West Service Center. And so transportation almost set up a natural 2-way divide.
I see.
And so if we were to move those 45 from west to
So that's
east,
not a good idea.
that would be a significant reallocation of resources. That's 45 drivers, buses, routes. And so that could tip the scale in a way that we could, but I don't know how much value that would add doing it 1 year early.
Yeah, I
Yes,
think
please.
we ought to be cautious because we still don't know what those new school boards will decide to do. And if they, for example, decided to contract with another vendor like Ogden, all that stuff we do would be of no use, so.
And from a transportation standpoint, the most efficient way for us is together right now. And so it's almost like we would be doing ourselves a disservice to uncouple early before those decisions
Yeah.
are made.
And they're only a year away. I mean, new boards will be here in a year.
Uncoupling would need more drivers and more buses, because you'd essentially set up routing for each of the 3 new areas and say, okay, you figure, you know what I mean? That crossover is gone then when you do that, and that.
And in thinking of the routing team, that would be such a burden to place on them to route for 3 districts right now.
So just as a point of clarification, is the official staff recommendation from transportation that we maintain the current configuration, or are you recommending a tiered approach? I'm a little bit unsure as to if you guys are like solidly, this is what we recommend, and
Recommendations are tricky. And
Okay.
they can come back to bite you in the back.
I won't hold you accountable, Joe. I'm just curious if if you're not comfortable answering the question, please don't. But I'm just wondering if you're saying, hey, this is like an 80-20 decision, 60-40, or if it's like a 49-51. Like,
And based on what these guys have, all the work that they put into us, I'd say that it makes some sense that the West is a little more set up
right.
to be successful by itself with a service center and things like that. And it would make more sense because of the size and the student population and the geography for maybe the Central and the South to stay together for at least some period of time. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Absolutely.
That's what I assumed the recommendation would be, but I needed to confirm that's actually what we were saying.
That's
Thank
right.
you.
So I know Frank's not here, but I don't remember, Jason, what we said, how many years for West it could, like I said, it was, first it wasn't gonna be full, then it was gonna be full. So if we say we're gonna build it, how long will it take us to build it?
The construction of the West Transportation Center. I don't.
Depends on what, I mean, they were
It
looking
depends on if
at
it's
a
the warehouse
metal
thing
building
versus-
versus
yeah,
a
the
brick and
I
mortar.
think it's
Seems like there were some
It's not
zoning
that
issues
long
with the
of
city
a-
too.
I think the zoning issues were solved though. I think it was
Yeah.
more of they wanted some more aesthetics on the outside.
So in my conversation with Frank, he said if we were to start construction now on that facility that we showed, it would be done by the time the split happens. So it's going to take some time. There are some of the materials that are 18 months out. If you're ordering right now, you're not going to see it for 18 months. So it's going to take time. The earlier we get on it, the better.
South is starting from 0.
And in those plans, it's not just building a service center, it's also providing, like you have to kick out that wall. You have, I mean, you gotta push back onto that undeveloped land right there. So we don't just have an existing plot, we can start building. We gotta move some other things around to make that happen.
Other questions?
Thank you.
Okay, thanks for having me.
Great detail. I think a lot of work went into that, so appreciate the team and your work. Eric, anything to add?
No, I appreciate that, Superintendent. They did. They put a lot of work into that. Good job. Good thinking forward. And I think that we just continue to problem solve on what that looks like, the closer we can get, and appreciate the value of trying to see things in a different way. So,
Yeah.
Eric, can I say one last thing?
yeah.
Sorry, Superintendent, is that okay?
No?
So, new job for me. I just learned to be a bus driver. I took the training. I went through the class as if I was a bus driver, and I have a brand new appreciation for how difficult the job is. Not only are you navigating and negotiating traffic in a 40-foot vehicle, you're also paying attention to 60 kids behind you who may or may not be behaving. And these are people that we train in 2 weeks and throw them on the road. They don't have years of educational training, student management, none of that. We train them on the fly. And so anytime you have a chance to thank a bus driver or appreciate them, we would sure appreciate that. We have a huge appreciation for our bus drivers.
Yeah. And I appreciate that. I think from all of you, just the contextual empathy that you have, the time that you take to understand what it is like to be a driver so that you can better support them, advocate for them. So thank you for doing that and for that comment. And again, appreciate the work. It's very digestible, it's straightforward, I know that took a lot of effort. Appreciate you looking at other possibilities, and we'll continue the discussion. President King, anything else you need from staff at this point?
No, I think we're good.
Okay, then we're gonna break.
We're gonna adjourn until board meeting at 6 o'clock.
Okay.
Call our school board meeting to order. First item on our agenda is that we're going to have the Pledge of Allegiance, and that's going to be led by Candy Harper. Next, we're going to have our inspirational thought, and that's going to be given to us by Rex Brimhall.
Roll with the tides, roll with the waves of life. On December 6, 2023, during the first full day of our initial visit to Hawaii, I was body surfing with my youngest son when I caught an impressive wave at Breneke's Beach in the Poipu area of Kauai. Initially, it was exhilarating, a sensation I've experienced countless times while body surfing. However, this time was different. The wave flipped me up, feet up, and propelled me toward the ocean floor, causing me to land almost directly on the crown of my head, fracturing my neck in 5 places. This wasn't planned, it wasn't expected, it wasn't the reason we went to Hawaii, but it was the reality that life presented to me at that time. Similarly, in Alpine School District, we're encountering unexpected challenges as we move toward dividing Alpine School District into 3 separate districts. We face unforeseen, unplanned, and undesired circumstances. Yet, like my experience in Hawaii, it is a situation that we must navigate. Yet in both situations, there's an important lesson. Life, much like the ocean, is unpredictable and powerful. It has the ability to surprise us, challenge us, and sometimes knock us off our feet or the boogie board. Just as waves recede, allowing us to find our footing again, we too have the capacity to rise, adapt, and learn from these experiences. In the face of unforeseen challenges, whether personal or organizational, it's essential to embrace resilience and adaptability. While the path ahead might be uncertain, it is also filled with opportunities for growth and transformation. This division of ASD into 3 separate districts will certainly come with its own set of trials, but it offers a unique chance to innovate, redefine, and strengthen each educational community. Just as I recovered from that unexpected wave, we can navigate through these changes by supporting one another, staying focused on our shared goals, and embracing the journey with open hearts and minds, with determination and unity. We can turn these challenges into stepping stones and plan for a bright future. So, let's roll with the waves of life, confident in our ability to overcome, adapt, and thrive, no matter what comes our way. I deeply appreciate the leadership in Alpine School District. Their unwavering focus on what truly matters, the students, is unmatched. As we navigate this wave that life has sent us, I hope we can all maintain this focus and continue making decisions that will best benefit the students. Thanks.
Thanks, Rex.
Thank you, Rex. We appreciate that. Next up, we are going to do our RISE recognitions. Alpine School District is thankful for so many teachers and staff members who excel in making a difference for our students, parents, colleagues, and others. Tonight, we would like to recognize nominees who have been selected to receive the Alpine School District RISE Award, which stands for Remarkable, Inspiring, Selfless, and Encouraging. Board Member Peterson.
Our first award is going to go to Karen Hunter, who's a counselor at Canyon View Junior High School. So we invite Karen, Mikkel, and Principal Grant Cottrell to come forward. Karen was nominated by Mikkel Nelson, who's an employee. Psychologist, I'm sorry. Correction. Karen is the school psychologist. Mikkel wrote, Karen is the calm in the storm. She is the most optimistic person I know and can literally make lemonade without any lemon thrown at her. And there are lots of lemons hurled at her on the daily. I am so grateful for her ability to be reasonable, empathetic, and the steady leader that our group needs. Even in the face of her own personal concerns, she consistently shows up for us in big ways. I am so grateful for her. Thank you, Karen, for being you.
Our next award goes to Karen. Oops, I'm sorry. I will learn to read. Our next award goes to Diane Castellano, who is a teacher at Horizon School. She was nominated by Whitley White, so we invite Diane Whitley and Principal Dan Heaps to come forward. Whitley wrote, Miss Diane is the walking definition of what the RISE Award represents. The dedication she shows to her students goes above and beyond. She gives them so much love and support and then extends that to their families, and extends to their families and is felt 100%. We are so lucky to have her teaching and loving our children.
Our next award goes to Casey Kaiser, a teacher at Mount Mahogany Elementary. And the nomination was by Marshall Osen, an employee. So if Casey, Marshall, and John Emmett could come forward, that'd be great. So Marshall wrote, Casey Kaiser is an exemplary teacher. Her calm demeanor creates a safe space for students and coworkers alike to trust her and work with her. She creates a fun educational environment for her students to learn. Her dedication to students is evident in her kindness, well-planned lessons, and relationships that she builds. Casey is an exceptional educator and deserves a shout out for all of her service and dedication.
We'd next like to invite Diego Tapia Lugo, as well as Rex Brimhall and Principal Heather Jensen to come forward. Diego is one of our bus drivers at West Transportation. This is what Principal Jensen said. Diego is a dedicated bus driver who has made a lasting impact on the preschool children he transports each day. Known for his remarkable patience, Diego approaches his job with a calm and steady demeanor, understanding that young children often need extra time and care. He never rushes them as they board the bus, instead offering gentle encouragement and assistance to those who may be nervous or hesitant. His patience also shines through in his interactions, always ensuring that the children feel safe and comfortable during their daily commute.
Our next award goes to Lisa Jones and Sherry Gottschall, who are paraprofessionals at Harbor Point Elementary. They were nominated by Jen Beza, and we invite Sherry, Jen, and Lisa, and then Principal Matt Goebel and Assistant Principal Jordan Raslets up. Jen wrote, Sherry and Lisa are paraprofessionals in our special autism classroom. They are taking amazing initiatives and leading their class. They are positive team players and always willing to take on hard things. They have bravely taught the class and given the students structure and support. It has been a lot of work, yet they move ahead with confidence. They are both always where they need to be and when they need to be there. They are both incredible at their jobs, and we are so lucky to have them at Alpine.
Next is Gabe Donadell, a custodian at Cedar Valley Elementary. Gabe was nominated by Denise Fitzgerald, and so we invite Gabe, Denise, and Principal John LeBaire to come forward. Denise wrote, Gabe is an incredible professional. His custodial duties are always done with excellence. He exudes enthusiasm and appreciation for all around him. He's outside with students in the morning, making funny artistic posters to greet students several times a week, and will stop and help anyone with anything at a moment's notice. He makes a huge difference at Cedar Valley Elementary, and we are the most fortunate school in the district to have Gabe.
And President King, I think they have some examples of his work here, so just so you notice.
Oh, that's nice.
Awesome, awesome.
Really exciting.
Okay, I just disappeared, so I'm just going to go right here. Can you get me over here? Or?
Thanks for being on.
Psychologist over all the district in some way.
Sounds like
John, walk away from Denise and stop trying to steal her. Okay, next up we have our Energy Star Certification Awards. So we are grateful for our partnership with Synergistic and the strides we are making for energy efficiency and protecting the environment throughout the communities that we serve. We'd like to welcome Senior Vice President Piper Azell with Synergistic for a brief presentation and recognition of schools that have received the 2024 Energy Star Award. Piper.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's good to be here. Thank you, board president, and superintendent, and to the public that are in the room. So much like an appliance in the home earns that Energy Star label, buildings are also awarded certification for energy efficiency. A building earning Energy Star building certification meets very strict energy performance standards that are set forward by the EPA. So to qualify for Energy Star building certifications, a building must score in the top 25% efficiency ratings based on the EPA's national performance system. So here in Alpine, for the last 4 years, The number of schools that have been certified for improving their efficiency rating has improved every year. This year, in 2024 award year, 73 buildings earned the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency Energy Star certification for superior energy performance. It actually was kind of hard to fit them on the page. This is the 4th year that the district has earned this recognition, representing your sustained commitment to active energy management. Alpine School District has the most Energy Star certified buildings of any school district in Utah and in the surrounding states. In the nation, Energy Star admits that Alpine is ranked 15th in the nation. So that's pretty remarkable considering the large school districts that are across the United States competing for this recognition. On average, Energy Star certified buildings use 35% less energy, cause 35% fewer greenhouse gas emissions, and are less expensive to operate than their peers, all without sacrificing performance in operations and comfort. These awards are significant to your organization. Recognition by the EPA for excellence in energy efficiency, acknowledging your stewardship, honoring people in your organization for their hard work and commitment in sustaining this exemplary program. A special thanks to Frank Pulley, his team, Zach, JJ, Kevin, and Scott in your operations group who work tirelessly behind the scenes to keep your buildings running efficiently. Also, a special thanks to custodian Jared Hill at Legacy Elementary. In the last 3 years, he has helped improve the efficiency rating considerably, making it one of the highest ranking efficiency schools in your district at this time. On behalf of the United States Environmental Protection Agency and all of us at Synergistic, congratulations on this recognition. We are proud of our partnership and your commitment to protect the environment today and for future generations.
Frank, could we have you and your team stand up, please? Jim, come on, guys. You're all a part of the team. Everybody stand up so we can clap for you.
Yeah, please. This award here is for the superintendent and board president to put wherever you like. Certainly, if there's a place to display it, it's a fantastic award from the EPA. But also each of the schools, all 73, they'll receive their own certification awards individually. Thank you, Piper. Yeah. Can we do a photo? Yes, please.
At this point, we have no community comments, so we will move on to the approval of minutes. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
I move that we approve the minutes.
I'll second it.
Okay, so with a motion by Mark and a second by Sarah, any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously. Next, I'll entertain a motion for claims.
I move that we accept this month's claims.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, so we have a motion by Stacy and a second by Joy Lynn. Do we have any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion passes unanimously. Next up, we have our routine business. I will entertain a motion.
President?
Yes.
I would like to separate one item out of the routine business, the renewal of the business administrator contract, because our standard practice is to have a full board review, which includes the services of USBA in making this evaluation. We have not completed that, so I move that we postpone this contract renewal for a later date when we will have finished that study.
Second.
So removing that from the routine business.
Okay, so we have an amendment to the routine business from Ada and a second by Emily. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so now I'll entertain a motion about the routine business.
I move that we adopt the routine business as outlined in board docs.
I'll second it.
Okay, so we have a motion by Ada and a second by Sarah. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That passes unanimously. Okay, next up, our action item, Dr. Farnsworth.
Thank you, President King. We do have an offer on the CTE home in Orem, resolution number 2025-001, and I recommend that the board approve that resolution so we can sell that home.
I move that we approve resolution 2025-001, sale of CTE home in Orem.
Do we have a second? Okay, so with a motion by Ada and a second by Stacy, any discussion?
I just have a clarifying question. I know that we've had some code change. Are we within code to go ahead and sell the house at this point in time?
So what we're doing here is just having the board have the approval of that. We can't finalize everything until the 4 cities give their approval, which is in the process. Craig Brinkerhoff is working on that. So we didn't want to have that and then have it delayed with another board meeting. So this will just sit until we have that and then be able to finalize.
Perhaps then we could amend the motion pending approval by the interlocal agreement.
Do you want to adjust your motion, Ada?
Pending the approval of
The interlocal, like
Or-
or city
Of the f-
support,
of the
city
f-
approval?
Of the 4 south cities.
Okay.
Just approval of their.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Statute requires us to get approval of those entities if we are disposing of property.
Okay. I amend the resolution to include the pending approval of the interlocal in the south area.
I'll second it.
Okay, so with a motion by Ada and a second by Sarah, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously. Next on to our discussion action items, Dr. Farnsworth.
Yes, we'd invite our legal counsel, Executive Director of Legal Services, Craig Brinkerhoff, to come forward. We have 3 policies that are for discussion. If the board feels like those policies are set, then we can move to an action item to approve those. 2 of those are revisions. 1 is a new policy. We'll take them one at a time. First policy is policy number 1610, maintaining constitutional freedom in public schools.
Yes, so this one is, it was previously named Separation of Church and State. We felt like that title was a little bit misleading and didn't quite get to the point that we wanted. We revised this policy to be specific and around Code 53G10202, which is maintaining constitutional freedom in public schools. We cite directly to the code, basically stating that it's, as a school district, we can neither promote nor prohibit the certain expression, and that it is okay to research and study, the involvement of religion, for example, in the arts, in music, in all those things as laid out in that code. That was the main reason that we went about updating this particular policy. We also built into this policy more about release time. We previously did not address release time in this policy, and so we wanted to make sure that we carved out what is release time and what it is appropriate for release time and not appropriate. That's a quick summary.
We have a little President King.
We can have discussion if we want to have discussion, or we can, someone can make a motion to move this to an action item.
So I'd like
Yeah.
to make a comment. I just really appreciate the name change that is now reflective of the same name of the piece of code that it is. Then when you're searching for a rule or a code, you can cross-reference them very quickly when they have the same name. So it wasn't just an arbitrary picking of a new name. It's to match the name of the code that we're citing in this policy.
I also wanted to comment. We met as a policy committee this afternoon, this morning, and realized that we didn't ever really define what release time is. And so we have some language that, if it's agreeable to the board, we'd like to just add it into the policy. It's the legal definition of what release time is. It comes directly from code. Release time means a period of time during the regular school day a student is excused from school at the request of the student's parent pursuant to the rules of the state board.
So Ada, are you making a motion to approve the policy with the language you just added?
I will make that. I just wanted to apprise the board
Okay.
that we had discussed this and to get your feeling on that.
When we discussed that in policy committee, the idea was that we would define that term the first time it's used, which is in the statement of policy.
We would also cite the code where that, link that to it in the policy.
Is there any other discussion, or do we have anyone wanting to make a motion?
I move that we pass the revised version of Policy 1610, Maintaining Constitutional Freedom in Public Schools.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion by Sarah and a second by Ada, sorry. It's been a day. Any discussion?
Just a clarifying question. I didn't see that there was an amendment in that motion to revised. Okay. Well, it is a revised. This would be a revised.
An
So the
amendment to
amended revised version?
The amended revised.
Okay, any other discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously. Next, Dr. Farnsworth.
Policy 3210, time and effort documentation. This is a new policy. Again, opportunity for discussion. If the board feels comfortable, they can move it to an action and approve the policy.
Yes, so we've been in the habit of slimming down our policies. This is one that we're actually adding. The purpose for this information has previously been held in the Business Services Handbook. We have been asked essentially by Utah State Board of Education to create a policy around this. The time and effort documentation really is about grants that we apply for and how we document our time and effort that we put into those grants to justify the receipt of those funds. And so this policy is coming from the verbiage that was previously held in the Business Services Handbook.
Thank you. Okay, do we have a motion?
I move to approve Policy 3210, time and effort documentation.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, so with a motion by Joy Lynn and a second by Ada, any discussion regarding the policy? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously. Next, policy 5117.
Yes, we recommend, if the board is comfortable with the revisions made, that this move from discussion to action and they approve the changes. Policy 5117, out-of-boundary school options.
Thank you. So this particular policy, we had discovered through various discussions with principals and supervisors that there was the use of out-of-area contracts being done at schools. And as we looked closer at those out-of-area contracts, they were being applied erroneously. The idea behind those out-of-area contracts is to make them a provisional contract for students that come into a school with pre-existing and known behavioral issues. So in those circumstances, the code allows us to set a provisional contract with that student and say, we understand that you've had behavioral issues in the past. So if you continue to have behavioral issues at our school, this contract will allow us to move you back out and deny that out of area agreement. So that's kind of what started us on the revisions for this particular policy, is clearing that up and clarifying that. As part of that, we also bolstered the code language again regarding the out-of-area process, both early application for that and late application, what that means, what those timelines are, and so forth. In our discussion in our policy committee meeting today, we also discussed what we might need to add when it refers to military families. So in a separate section of code, there's an opening of 30 days for a military family, and they have a priority. So we are going to also suggest, and I believe there'll be a motion, that we add that one piece of code into this policy that allows for a 30-day window for out-of-boundary students with regards to military or boundary changes. Thank you. I'm so sorry. I got that messed up. There's two things we discussed. So anytime we do a boundary change as a school district, or you do a boundary change as a school board, we need to have a 30-day window where we open up for out-of-boundary applications for those students affected by that boundary change. I apologize. Thank you for giving me that stare that I knew I was saying something wrong.
Okay, do we have anyone wanting to make a motion?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve policy 5117, out-of-boundary school options revision, with the addition of section 1.2.2.7. Parents of students enrolled in a school affected by a boundary change shall have at least 30 days after the day on which the local board votes to approve the school boundary change to make an out-of-area enrollment request using the out-of-boundary request form.
I'll second it.
Okay, so we have a motion by Joylyn and a second by Sarah. Any discussion?
So I really, really love 1.2. I think Viewpoint would have loved this a couple of years ago, so thank you for that. But I especially wanted to comment on 1.2.1. Just a lot of appreciation for giving principals the autonomy in those situations that need to be a little quicker than maybe the others. So thank you for keeping our students in mind with that.
I just appreciate board member Joylyn, board member Lincoln. She remembered this part of the code that really needed to be included in this policy, which is the special case where there's been a boundary change. The window needs to be reopened for 30 days.
Okay, all in favor of approving policy number 5117, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously. Superintendent.
Yes, thank you, Craig, appreciate that, and thank you, board members, for passing those policies. Last week in our board work session, we discussed some items that we could consider as we move forward for establishing greater strength and continuity among the new districts. One of those was the idea of a calendar. We know the calendar committee, there's a survey out now. We're getting feedback on the calendar for the 26-27 school year. The board discussed in that work session the possibility of having that committee develop additional calendars that future districts could adopt so that there was continuity across the three districts with respect to school calendars. So we are bringing that here for discussion. and possible action if the board wanted to move forward in that direction.
Do we have any discussion? Okay, someone want to make a motion? I'm kind of stopping deer in the headlights up here. Would someone like to make a motion?
So you're saying there's a chance?
Okay, I'll do it. Well, I'll just see if I can piece it together. I will move that we direct the calendar committee to prepare a 25-26 calendar. Oh, no, oh yeah, 26-27, my apologies. And in addition to prepare 3 additional years, 27-28, 28-29, 29-30, for the board to consider for recommendation for the new districts to adopt.
I'll second.
I can't repeat that again, so I'm just going to say what I said previously. I motioned, seconded by Stacy. All in favor? Oh, sorry. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That was easy and hard at the same time.
Okay. The next item is also in preparation for the reconfiguration, the need to create a third data center in Alpine School District, and we would recommend that we start that process working with our partners to show our intention to add an additional data center. I know that is, as we discussed last week, that would take a period of time to be able to enact that, but a motion by the board would signal to UEN our intent and interest in securing a third location to store our data.
Thank you, Superintendent. Do we have discussion or a motion?
I move that we create a third data center in the school district.
Joylyn, are you okay if there's potentially a little bit of specificity to the language? Do you? Yeah, just give me a second.
I move.
Go ahead, Emily.
Do you mind if I let Emily make a motion? Because I think we need to be a little, and sorry, my apologies.
Okay.
She's prepared.
I move that we authorize the technology department to work in partnership with, who is it, UEN, to investigate a location and begin to establish a data center within the boundaries of the central district.
Do we have a second? Thank you, Joylyn. I apologize about that. Okay, so we have a motion by Emily and a second by Joylyn. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Superintendent.
The last area of consideration was our print services. We had a presentation, talked about the great services that our print department is offering. And this motion, if the board feels so inclined, would direct the staff to continue to provide those services, not to work toward expanding that to 3 different districts, but look at the recommendation of having consolidated services across the 3 districts until the point came that a new district wanted to create their own print services. We have sufficient equipment there. We would continue to upgrade that as need be, we believe, through that one central service to provide the print services across all 3 districts. That would be something that would allow those new districts to leverage that until they got to a point where they wanted to provide their own. So that would be our recommendation.
Thank you. Okay, any discussion or a motion?
I'd like to move that as a board that we recommend moving forward the discussion to continue print services to serve all 3 new districts.
Okay, so just to clarify, Ada, you're recommending that, or you're motioning that we make the recommendation to the new 3 districts to maintain print services as it is?
Oh, okay.
Is that, I just want to make sure I heard you correctly. And I don't,
maybe I need to, I was moving forward the discussion, moving forward the.
so you're not making the recommendation to
the new boards?
Yeah, you're not doing that?
Okay, I didn't know that we were going to go that far. Okay.
Do we need to include the language to not acquire additional property? Does that need to be in it?
I don't think that we can have a discussion, or we
Maybe
can make
need
a
to
specific
discuss-
motion.
Yeah, maybe we need to discuss this. Superintendent, maybe you can reiterate.
Yes, so
Maybe I didn't hear
our
properly.
plan as we move forward towards the 3 new districts is to look at services are provided, support services are provided currently within Alpine School District. And as we studied some of those, some of them made sense that let's keep that as a consolidated service across all 3 districts. There would be no need at this point to prepare for 3 separate print services. Now, a new district could determine that they want to have their own, but we would move forward as if there was to be one providing services across all 3 districts. We studied how they have an ordering system that would allow them to keep that separate, bill those districts according to those costs. It would maintain a low cost per copy and other services. A new board, again, could choose to go in a different direction. New administration could choose to do their own. We would move forward over the next couple years with the intention that all 3 districts would leverage that consolidated service. The board could move to make that recommendation, directing staff to move towards that end.
Yeah, I would, rather than directing or recommending to future new boards, I would say I would like to move that we recommend to staff, empower staff to move forward as if print services were going to serve all 3 new districts.
I have a question. So does this mean if there were, because on one of my many field trips, Standard Print Services, I know they've had different conversations about things that they could maybe bring to different areas so that everything wasn't coming out of their central shop. So if they wanted, that they've been talking about for years, right? So would they still be able to make those adjustments with this?
Yes, I think our movement we would not try and buy 3 of every machine that we have in there to split 3 ways, but to expedite the delivery and the responsiveness of we could make some adjustments.
I just want to make sure they'll be able to make those adjustments. Thank you.
Any other discussion? So just to clarify, we're not making this recommendation to future boards. We're just saying we're going to just keep doing what Print Services does, and then we will adjust if new boards make a different decision.
Correct.
Okay. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion passes unanimously. Next up, Superintendent, our membership report.
Yes, you've received your membership report. I think it's just the trend continues. We continue to see high growth in our secondary schools out west. We have, I believe, 5 schools, elementary schools over 1,000 right now. So we'll continue to monitor that. I know we're preparing FTEs to send out to those schools. So some areas just continue to see significant growth. So that's my report on membership.
Thank you, Dr. Farnsworth. Okay, it's now time for board member and superintendent reports and information items.
I will share a report. We recently had a State School Board Association conference, and we were represented by Eric Woodhouse and Joe Hayes. They did a presentation for other school boards across the state on our efforts to comply with safety requirements and other measures that we're taking. I appreciate them sharing the good work that they are doing here in Alpine School District with other districts across the state so that they can leverage that same expertise and that modeling really of how it is to be done. So thank you, Eric, and appreciate your work there.
Along with that, we had a wonderful conference, and our own Mark Clement is now the president of the USBA, so congratulations on that new appointment. We are happy for you. The superintendent is definitely too modest to mention that he also presented at our conference with Scott Sumner, and it was a wonderful, wonderful class. There were a lot of wonderful comments about where Alpine is and how we are leading out and making sure that we are I guess, being intentional on building capacity for our leaders. And as a board member, I find great comfort and assurances knowing that as we split, we have amazing, amazing administrators that will go to 3 of these districts. And so it's because of your leadership, Dr. Farnsworth, and we are so appreciative and proud of the work that you did up this weekend at USBA.
Thank you.
If I could just chime in on that last comment. We actually looked as USBA officers at all the evaluations that people did, and more people actually commented about how great that breakout session was than any other breakout session. So that was really an exceptional job. So thank you, Dr. Farnsworth, for your work on that.
So Eric, I really just mentioned yours so they would mention mine, but it's a backhanded way. I got called on it, so sorry.
So in all my years in K-12, I have never seen an excited energy that was the first day back from the winter break this year. I had the opportunity to be in several schools that day. One of my teachers did a very cool sip-in socks, and I will tell you that when I walked into that, like those kids were vibrating. It was fantastic. Just so excited to be back together, to be back with their teacher, everybody talking all at once, 6th graders, by the way, so the volume on that. And then I wanted to read something from another one of my teachers. She had sent out an email to parents ahead of time letting us know what was going to happen with the students and asking parents to have a conversation ahead of the first day because they were going to be making one-word resolutions in class. So she had asked the parents would talk with their students ahead of time. And then she said, you'll pick one single word that represents what they want to focus on or improve for the year. I'd love if this could reflect something at school. We'll be doing a project focusing on these things and hang them in the room until the end of the year. I am a big-time fan of the New Year, New Goals, and I love that we have teachers that are, it's not just an academic goal, right, but it's how I can improve myself, how I improve my community around me, and it was just very cool across multiple schools, multiple classes, to see just how excited everybody was to get back to their teacher and back to class, and so I'm just very appreciative of all the teachers who made that first day back really something special, and they're setting goals and things that they can work on for the rest of the year.
Microphone. I just wanted to send a shout out to our staff. We had a work session last week, which I feel really bad for Emily because we just discussed everything from calendars to OPEB to facilities, transportation. There was so much information. And I know that was a lot for staff to do so quickly after the break. And I just want to express my gratitude to all of them for committing to make sure that we have 3 strong districts moving forward and making sure that student needs are always put first. So I just want to recognize all of our employees who helped participate in that and prepare for that meeting. And also, just so you know, around the corner, we have another legislative session coming. So mark your calendars from January 21st to March 7th. There will be a lot of action happening on the Hill, and just want to extend an invitation to everyone to participate in our constitutional republic, to show up, have your voice heard, and reach out to legislators about things that you oppose as well as support.
I just wanted to acknowledge, first of all, I've really enjoyed having our new board member, Emily Peterson. You've been awesome to work with, and I just welcome you again to our board, and I just look forward to working with you. I also have had the opportunity to visit a number of schools this week, and just want to give a shout out to our teaching and learning team. It's happening. Great gains. I am so proud of Parkside Elementary. They have just been making great strides for their total population, but especially for their MLL, their multi-language learners. They are just doing a phenomenal job, and I just, my hat's off to John Shelton and his team. I said, how do you do it? And he described the very, very targeted teaching that they do through the coaches that are working so hard with the teachers. They are getting this work done, and I'm just so proud of them. And thank you, Superintendent, for your leadership and making this happen. It's really phenomenal. Thank you.
Okay, we do not have need of a closed session this evening, so I will entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I move to adjourn.
Okay,
Second the motion.
Okay, so with a motion by Joy Lynn and a second by Mark, we're not going to talk about it. All in favor to adjourn the meeting, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you.